Welcome to another session of the Expanded States of Consciousness World Summit. I'm Dr. Geeta Vaid, a psychiatrist and psychedelic psychotherapist practicing in New York City. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Marie Mbouni. Welcome, Dr. Mbouni.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with you and a part of this World Summit.
I'm very much looking forward to our conversation today. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about Dr. Mbouni's practice and background with our audience, and then we can jump right into conversation. Is that all right?
That's perfect.
So Dr. Marie Mbouni is a medical doctor and has been called the entrepreneur's shaman. She is a spiritual guide, a medicine woman, consciousness coach, a trauma-informed sacred ceremonies integration facilitator. She is a healer, a mentor, author, and speaker. Dr. Marie Mbouni is the founder and the CEO of Heart Leadership and the Source Codes Mystery School. She's a leading expert in guiding high-performance leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, visionaries, and creatives to reconnect and manifest their fullest expression so they might achieve high levels of performance, holistic success, alignment, and joy, where true healing arise. Marie has been boldly opened up to the power of the heart and mind, the beauty of intuition, and the all-encompassing power of love. She's now stepping into her destiny as a healer and has embraced her potential beyond the confines of the mainstream. So I'm so excited to unpack much more about that. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
And it is a pleasure as well, and also to have a fellow MD and psychedelics practitioner.
Thank you. Dr. Mbouni, you have beautifully transitioned from the field of medicine to embracing the role of spiritual guide and healer. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yes, that's a beautiful question, and a question that may require a long answer. However, I will endeavor to make it succinct. So the journey started with hearing the call to step into this new path. And honestly, I did not say yes to the call at first. Since I was a child, I knew that I had spiritual gifts. I, could read people's thoughts. I could hear, see, feel, know what everybody around me could not. And at the time, it made me feel different. And also, I was stopped a lot. Let's say if I had an intuitive hit, or maybe I read somebody's thought in my family, in my home, and I would say, "Oh, that's not really the truth." I was told, shut up, the elders are speaking, and what do you know? And so when I look at it now, I made it mean it's bad. I have to shut up. I have to not express whatever it is that I'm feeling because it's not okay. And so I started to hide it. I started to push it down. And then I developed the belief that in order to belong, I had to be exactly like everybody else, not different, which led me to even hide it more. And so I already knew that I wanted to be a doctor, and I went that route and did everything, anesthesiology. And then I started receiving in dreams or meditations that I'm here for more. I'm here for more. I'm not here just for one patient. But I just thought, oh, what does it even mean anyway, right? Because I had pushed ignored and silenced the spiritual part of myself, my soul, unconsciously and sometimes consciously. And so I still was ignoring that. And then something happened in 2012, many years ago. People were talking about the end of the world, the end of the Mayan calendar. But for me, what happened is all my gifts came online abruptly in a way I wasn't expecting. I remember I was at an event. It was actually a pool party on a awareness conference. And during that event, as I was walking down the hallway to go to the pool party, I met this couple, and the guy's ancestors came through me. They were like, "You need to tell him," they gave me a message to give to this person. And I didn't know the person, and I was kind of compelled because it was such an important message. And so I went to this person that I didn't know. I kind of felt, it was just crazy. So I went to the person and I was like, "I'm so sorry, I don't know you, but I have this message from, your ancestor such and such." And I gave them the message. It was like a consciousness conference. So they were like, it wasn't like a business conference where maybe the person would have been like, "You drank too much," or "I don't drink," but like that could have been the response. And when I gave them the message, they were crying, they were so grateful. But for me, at that moment, I thought, this is not okay. I need to get a handle of this because I don't want things to come out when I don't expect, when I didn't say yes, it's okay. And so I went home and I really went into a deep inner meditation and really connecting to source, to spirit, and like, okay, I got it. How do I work with this? What do I need to do? And that's when I found my first teacher. And in the journey of my studies, different lineages started. But I was still not saying yes to really working with people. I was just learning, which in retrospect was also a form of resistance. I call that sexy resistance because it looks like you're doing something really, important, valuable. But at the end of the day, I wasn't saying yes to the call. And at some point, what happened was at my job, I had a situation where I really was not treated like a valuable person. Um, I don't have to go to the story, but essentially, I had asked for a leave, and we had two chairmen, and I had asked one, and they had not communicated. And so I got called to come back, but in a way that was really demeaning and it made me feel like I've been devoting my life. I'm always on time. I'm a great anesthesiologist. I am. I mean, really excellent. I'm just a cog in the wheel. There's no respect. There's no. And so from that point on, I just kind of release that profession and I started paying more attention on how can I transition. And I started from that point, I came out as spiritual in my hospital. Because until then, I wasn't even mentioning anything. And yeah, I started to talk about things. But then I realized that people actually knew already that there was something because one day I was coming out of surgery, going to the recovery room, and all the nurses were like, "Oh, Dr. Mbouni, we'll take your patient." And I was walking in with another anesthesiologist, and they didn't do the same thing. And later on, I asked them, why do you always want to get my patients? And they were like, your patients wake up without a lot of pain, they're calm, they're easy to deal with. So for us, it really cuts our work down. And that's why we love our patients. And then they were like, we call you the verbal Xanax behind your back. And so even if I was trying to hide, people could sense that there was something more. And that gave me more courage where, my patients, I was putting them to sleep using journeys or meditations. I was bringing crystals in my operating room, essential oils. Like I was out completely, and the world didn't end. World didn't end. And I just kept moving on from there, seeking advice. And until I was like, okay, I'm ready. Before that, people were like, oh, you need to work hard, make money, save it, and then leave. And I tried that twice. And each time something happened that made me spend the money. And so it was like, oh, it's going to be a leap of faith for me. It's not going to be it's different for everyone, but for me, I needed to take a leap of faith, which I did. And I went through many, many things. Fear. I had a very intimate journey with fear because number one, my identity. As doctors, we are called doctor so and so, and it had been my profession for 18 years. Was like, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? Right? So I had all those questions and uncertainties. And in shamanism, this is called navigating the unknown, like having the ability to still trust when you don't exactly know what the next step is. So I went through many, many things, including many conversations with the divine, um, because at some point I didn't have enough income. And that's when my mind, and everybody has that. I was like, wow, I think I'm going to become homeless, or, people are going to point fingers. And I was even thinking, if this happens, then I'm just going to put stuff in my car. I have a great car. And so I'm going to be okay. Like I was having those thoughts until one day I remember I was at Trader Joe's. It's a store, a grocery store we have in California, in Los Angeles. And I was standing and looking around and thinking, what can I buy that is not organic and it's gonna be okay? Because up until then, I didn't even look at the price of food. I just went and got, organic food, and I realized organic food is like 3 times more expensive than non-organic. And when I observed myself having those thoughts, I was like, this is not okay. So I went home and I had a conversation with the divine. I was like, we need to talk. And I was like, you guys said that this is my path. And I don't believe in suffering when I am doing my calling. That they just don't go together. And so I want to remind you that I live on earth. And on earth, we have to pay for stuff. I was very direct and like, I'm willing to do this, but maybe you kind of forgot. But this is the reality. And I had trust and confidence. And from that point on, things opened up.
What an extraordinary story. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so profound. I mean, what I'm really hearing is you were you had so much access to the spirit world and being a channel your whole life. And I love this description of you pushing it away to conform and to achieve success. And it's also so poignant and poetic that you became an anesthesiologist, which is all about putting people to sleep. And now it seems, although it does sound as if you did it in a very beautiful way with so much care and love. But then this transformation to waking people up. What a beautiful, inspiring story.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit, I'd love to hear more about what being a shaman looks like and how you use your gifts in the present day.
Mm, great question. So, I want to first start by saying shaman is kind of like an agreement on a word. The word shaman actually came from Russia, right? Although most people don't know that. And so being a shaman for me is really knowing that my presence, my consciousness is the medicine, is the channel that allow people to access their potential as well. Um, so it might look different ways depending on what people need. When I receive a client, the first thing I do is really get to know them and ask them what they want, what their intentions are. And this in itself is a big journey because a lot of people don't know what they want or they do not dare ask. And the healing starts there. Because for me, being a shaman is helping people come back into wholeness, which is what healing is. And after that initial journey, we then create a plan. And I use different modalities from shamanism, from journeying, which on the outside might look like a meditation, but it's really like accessing different levels of consciousness, different realms, different states to receive guidance, medicine, so that people can then come back. It could be soul retrieval because whenever we have anything that happens to us, some people call it trauma, wounds, whatever your word is. When that happens, we dissociate, we lose parts of ourselves, we abandon parts of ourselves unconsciously or consciously. And soul retrieval is bringing back those, places and spaces where we, like I did, ignore ourselves, hide ourselves, silence ourselves, suppress, abandon, abuse ourselves. We get to heal those parts and bring them home to the full self. It could be something that has to do with mindset, with beliefs, with previous trauma. And for those who are open, I guide them through a plant medicine ceremony. And we choose the plant depending on the needs of the person. Um, it could be just a relationship that they need to develop with a certain plant medicine, and we would use microdosing for that. But in essence, it's really about holding space. It's about holding space. The shaman is not the guru. The shaman is not like, I really want to tell everyone here, please do not give your power away because everybody has an inner healer intelligence. And the shaman can open the door so that you can walk there. We open portals, open doors. And I work with empowerment so that when you're not with me anymore, uh, you can steal. take care of yourself. Because sometimes, with certain healing modalities or allopathic or, um, people have, you've spent 10 years working with someone and it's like, what are you doing? And sometimes we need 10 years, but do we always, right? When is it done? When are we healed? When are we able to say, okay, I'm now going to move forward with my life versus I need to fix this and that, right? Like really shifting that mindset of having to fix to living our lives. Because everything in shamanism, everything is medicine. Our wounds, our hurts, our joy, and medicine means it can teach you something, show you something, maybe deepen your understanding of something, maybe shift your perspective, maybe open you up to something completely extraordinary that you had no idea about. And so I do this in person, uh, online, and the energy transmits really well.
Mm.
People think if you're on Zoom, it doesn't translate. Absolutely not. It translates fully and completely. Retreats, private ceremonies. A lot of my clients that I work with like bespoke private ceremonies, like couples, 3 or 4 friends, or where we can really focus. But sometimes I'm also, work with um, certain organizations for bigger retreats with like 30, 40 people. It's, Dr. Gita, I remember when I was um, starting this thing, when I was transitioning, I remember really clearly, I was like, I just want to be paid to be me. Like, that was my intention. And that's my life as a shaman. Is I show up with all that I am, all that I have, everywhere I've been, everywhere I'm going to go for you.
How beautiful. And it also shows your own personal journey and path is really what you're embodying and holding and inviting another into, which is extraordinary. I can feel it as I'm talking to you.
Mm,
I want to dive into a few of the concepts that, I think we touched on a little bit, particularly in the introduction, because I know your work really focuses and emphasizes the power of plant medicine and divine intelligence. And I'm wondering, for those who are unfamiliar with those terms, could you open them up a little bit and explain what those both entails, plant medicines as well as divine intelligence?
mm, beautiful question. So plant medicines, we call them plant medicine teachers. They are psychedelic plants. So um, they contain psychedelics that, help in many different ways. Um, the plants that I work with are psilocybin, ayahuasca, iboga. And although cacao is not a psychedelic, I work with cacao as well. So when we say plant medicine, in the world of shamanism, these plants have an intelligence. We call them plant spirits. And they actually are here to help us, to heal us. They have a consciousness. That's the spiritual part of it. And they have been studied, of course. And we know exactly what receptors they work on. We know the compounds that, they have that then work on our brains to really help us heal. the deepest parts of ourselves. And, you know, when you work with plant medicines or plant medicine teachers or plant spirit teachers, it is a direct revelation, meaning you experience it, you feel it, you receive. It's not something that maybe a story somebody told you, and you can feel their power, their love, their guidance. And I know it's a concept that, may be a little not easy to grasp, but it is real. Just like when we talk about energies, right? The electromagnetic field. People say, oh, but what does it mean? I can't see it, I can't touch it. This plant spirit. The electromagnetic field has a wide spectrum, and us as humans can only perceive this much of that spectrum, right? When it goes to sound, we can only perceive this many decibels. I'm sure most of you have heard about dog whistles. Like when we whistle, the dog hears, but you can't hear. So if you can't hear, do you then say, well, it doesn't exist? It just means maybe at this time you cannot perceive it. So what happens is that our sensing mechanisms, the way you sense and perceive information, usually shifts, right? Because on a normal um, day, our brains, our senses don't always perceive everything that is available, all the information that is available. And you know this. It's like even the brain doesn't present to us all the information that is available, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And so these plant spirit teachers are so benevolent, so intelligent. Um, like the mushrooms, for example, psilocybin is the compound. It's like a mycelium. And they told me that they are here to open portals to the inner self, to the outer selves, to the outer world, to the universe. And so things that you could not sense or perceive before become readily available to us, right? Now, divine intelligence, and I like the word divine because I am inclusive, right? So, whatever the divine is for you, it could be God, Goddess, Allah, Buddha, Baha'i, nature, whatever it is for you, it's that higher power, that something bigger than me. That's what I call the divine, so that everybody's included. Right? There is divine intelligence. It is this unfathomable, undescribable um, power, not as in force, that I don't even have words. It's it's where you really, when you're in touch with that, you feel the interconnectedness, the oneness of the universe, the majesty, the beauty, the the space, the vastness, the awe, the wonder, it's it's so beautiful. And that intelligence for me is benevolent. It's something that we can always reach out to, refer to. ask for help, from seek guidance, and it is within each and every one of us, because we are like fingerprints of the divine. We have it within us.
So
And
beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I feel like I have so many questions even on what you have described. But I'm going to push on because I want to go into so many different places. You did mention you work with 3 plant medicines. Um, do you work with them for different indications? It sounds like everything is very bespoke. And just because of your background in medicine, I'm wondering about the mind-body interface in
Mm,
terms of healing. How this new, much more expanded use of yourself can address physical complaints.
mm. Yes, I almost said aho. I'm saying aho. So let's see. The question was that, you know, what I'm you first spoke about the medicines and different indications, and then the mind body interface.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first of all, we don't work with plant medicine because we want to. They call you and they tell you they want to work with you. Like, that's the normal, traditional, um, it's not like Western medicine where, allopathic, I should say, we like, oh, I'm going to choose this specialty. Although it's also calling as well, it's just in a different way, right? We go
Yes.
towards what we are attracted to, but the plant medicines choose us. And so if you are not chosen by plant medicine, you don't really have that relationship, because it's, in essence, you become a channel for the medicine to then work on the people that you are working with. And yes, there are specific indications. So for me, I like to really prepare people into the ability to open their consciousness, the ability to open the mystic brain, to really go into those expanded states, because it can be intense for certain people to suddenly, somebody who has never even meditated, all of a sudden, you in this whole realm, can in itself be a little traumatic. It can be too much, right? Where it's like, I want it to stop. And of course, you can't stop, because, like, it takes a certain amount of time for the medicine to leave your body. So I like to prepare my clients depending on where they are, their level of consciousness, their level, their evolutionary path, their intention, the resources they have, to be able to deal with, this amount of information, right? Because when you expand it, it's information. And so I like to start with psilocybin, because, they're my little brothers, little grandfathers, and it can be a gentle, uh, gradual journey into those states, right? Because the doses are a little more controlled, and people can then choose to move forward or not. It gives this a little bit of a sense of empowerment, um, and it allows me to also see how they react, right? And I use ayahuasca, grandmother ayahuasca, for those who are really prepared, and um, who can withstand that amount of, information, openness, truth, right? And then the last medicine, I rarely use it, which is iboga, um, because it's really really powerful. and it's the real medicine of truth and love, meaning it's up in your face. You can't ignore it. And truth is not easy to take. And so I rarely use it. Although I was initiated into Iboga at the age of 14 in Cameroon, my country, um, because Iboga grows in Cameroon and Gabon and not in many places in the world. So when I work with plant medicine, there is, many phases, right? Like assessment, preparation, ceremony, integration, post ceremony. So when we prepare the person in ceremony, it's always, for me, mind, body, heart, spirit. So I include the heart into all that because there is nothing that goes in the mind that the body doesn't know. Nothing. I can put it another way, which is that we store a lot in our bodies. And and most of us are oblivious. It's almost like a pressure valve. I'm gonna put it like that. It's like when it's really too much pressure here in the mind, it goes in the body, right? But we don't know that. And so I will usually, help my client, especially with the body. Most people are aware of the mind, of the spirit, but the body is mostly ignored. And I teach them interoceptive awareness, really like being able to have an awareness of the sensations that are in your body when something happens and honoring those sensations and allowing the sensations to flow through you through different practices. And usually people are very surprised, like, oh my gosh, my chest, my belly, my back, my neck. I wasn't even aware that I was holding so much tension. It's like if you've ever had a massage and you go and, it's like, what? I have all these tensions and pressure points that I wasn't even aware of because we were subconsciously putting it there. So always included, like they are all interrelated, right? The mind, the body, the heart, the spirit. The heart is the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. So I always involve the heart, which is like the biggest portal ever. And you cannot heal only one aspect. It's just not complete. And what I've found is that different parts are easier for certain people, right? Like it's easier for certain people to access that, to have interoceptive awareness, like their body. For certain people, they more, like in the mind and maybe they have tools. And certain people are more connected to the spiritual world. But I find that it's when you bring that interrelatedness, when you presence that, that you can really have a full healing. Because if not, you're just compartmentalizing or ignoring the signals that you are receiving, right? So always interrelated, always taking care of all those parts before, during, and after
It's
ceremony.
very pertinent to the expanded awareness conference that we're on because you really capture how much you help someone grow to hold all of these aspects within themselves. It's a very different way of thinking about healing. Very different.
Thank you. That's my way, and it came from my own experience, being my own witness, having this self-awareness of my own healing journey, and noticing like, wow, I was focused on this, and I didn't realize. I even created something that I call body journey, right? Not like mind journey as in meditation, but body journey where, you journey with your body and, I mean, yeah, a lot of information. It's so powerful, so powerful. And for those who do things like yoga, maybe you've experienced, one day you're in a yoga class and you're doing a pose, then all of a sudden you're crying, and it's like, why am I crying? What happened? Release, because something was able to be released from your physical body using, yoga. Yeah.
You'd mentioned that your roots are from Cameroon. Could you tell us a little bit about, because that's quite compelling. It sounds like actually there's a lot more in between you going the medical route. Um, there was some suppression, but not complete, because that's pretty something to be initiated into iboga
Yeah.
at such a young age.
Well, I did not get initiated into Iboga because I wanted to expand my consciousness, right? I What happened was, my mother had cancer, and she was told she needed to have surgery, like the whole thing, chemotherapy, and she didn't want to do that. And so she went to sit with Iboga. But what happened was she couldn't hear, she couldn't understand, she couldn't really get any information. And she tried many times, and Iboga told her that she needed to bring me, and that I would be the one who would be able to help. So when I went because my mother, like, if I didn't do that, she wouldn't be here, right? Um, and yeah, that was quite, because Iboga is the root bark of this tree, carbonate tree, and so it's the root bark that's like pounded. So it's almost like sawdust that you have to chew. It's very bitter. Um, it was a it was really, I still don't have words many years later, but Iboga completely reformatted, like enhanced. Um, if you've ever been on a journey, like sometimes, the plant medicine works on your brain. It, creates new synapses or new ways, and you are actually aware of what's happening. At the time, I didn't know that it was reformatting or whatever. I just knew things were happening.
Mm.
I remember on my first ceremony, um, the first thing I saw was my brother who had passed away before I was born. He's the one who came to welcome me. So I had never seen him in this world, but I knew that it was him. And I don't know how I knew. And that's the thing of the spirit, right? Of the soul. It's a continuum. Yeah, I sat for 3 months every weekend until my mother was here. And Iboga was like, you need to walk over there and you're going to get this plant and it's going to be boiled for this long and she's going to drink this many cups. Very precise instructions on the things that my mother needed to do in order to heal.
And this was all channeled through you.
Yes,
What an
yes. But
extraordinary.
that's how precise, right? It's not like, oh, I saw butterflies and pink elephants. It was like, for this many days, this is gonna be this herb, this plant, this tree bark, things that I didn't even know those trees. I'm a city girl, right? I was born in the capital city, so I didn't. But it would be like, this is the tree, and the tree is located there, and you need to take the bark from this area of the tree, and it has to be boiled, and she needs to take hot showers with this, um, concoction, um, from that bark. It was like that precise.
Well, it certainly is displaying not only how the medicine calls you, but also um, your early roots as a healer.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little about the concept of surrender, because oftentimes in our culture, surrender is seen as a weakness. And you have spoken about it as a really, in a very different way, as a crucial tool, really, for empowerment. Tell us more about your perspective on surrender.
Mm. Yes, it's really a beautiful question because words have energy. Certain words that we speak have like a field where everybody thinks about what it means. And, there are many words like that. If I say that word, you will immediately think about something. It will trigger either an idea, a memory. And surrender is one of those words, very polarizing, right? And to me, surrender is such a complex state of consciousness that really takes time to comprehend and the ability to access, to achieve. Surrender starts with awareness. This is what's happening. Acceptance. Yes, this is happening, meaning we're not in denial, we're not in victim mode, we're not putting our head in the sand. Yes, this is happening to me or somebody else.
Really
And
appreciate your elaboration of these concepts. They're so critical and they really open up what the real significance is.
yeah, yeah, because people think surrender is not passive. I want to say that at all. It's a constant blow by blow, minute by minute, micro shifts in your state of consciousness, in your mindset, in your ability to respond. It's it's not static. It's and so here I was talking about that awareness, acceptance, constant micro shifts, um, and your willingness to be present. It has to do with presence, which in itself is a whole big topic. Your presence, sitting with it. I am here. And then it's like the willingness to let go of the need to know. Because sometimes, we want to control, we want to know exactly. So the willingness to let go of the need to know, the willingness to let go of the need to be right, the willingness to be a witness to your experience that's happening at the moment. Um, and it's about the willingness to navigate the unknown, right? Um, it's about forgiveness. And what do I mean by that? That word surrender, as you said, people think it's passive, it's giving up. And those thoughts will always come because we all live, we have that collective unconscious where, the ideas that we receive from the environment bombard us. And when those start to come, sometimes we can have a lot of self-criticism, I'm a loser, or, whatever your words are. Being able to forgive yourself at that time. That, no, I'm not. And even if I am, I forgive myself completely and totally. Right. So it has a little bit of forgiveness. And there's a point where what I've noticed is that you kind of reach a state where it's almost like the field of potentiality. Because when you surrender, you open up to potential. You're not attached to anything anymore. Because when you attach, that's not potential. Our imagination is shut down. So when you reach that state, it's like, that's how it feels to me anyway. Like, to do this, it's like you really open to that state. I remember I had a journey with um, grandmother ayahuasca, and at the beginning when it started, I was just seeing black. Normally I would see like patterns, colors, um, fractals. It was black, dark, and I was just like, oh, maybe it's just taking a little time, but I should be able to see the room, right? But it was like I couldn't see anything. It was black. And then after a while, I was like, I remembered that everything is medicine in shamanism. And so I asked grandmother, I was like, is, what are you trying to show me? And she said, this is the void of creation. The void is the void. You don't create from, like, when you, pure creation is creation. It's not imitation, it's not replication, it's creation. Comes from the void. And I was like, okay, yes, I got it. Let's go. She was like, I remember at the time I was wanting to create a program, a group program where I was calling in powerful women, and I wanted to create that. And she said, if you want to create something powerful, you need to be able to sit in the uncomfortableness of the void. Boom. I was just like, and she let me sit in that for 30 minutes at least, where I had no choice but to surrender. It was like, at first thoughts were coming, but then it was like, wow, I'm in the void. And it's that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marie. I mean, you really bring to life in your language and in your expressions the whole process of healing. It's delightful to listen to you. I wanted just to touch on one thing about, because I know so much of your practice, you guide people towards manifesting their fullest expressions. And I'm just wondering if you could touch on how you see these expanded states of consciousness unlocking one's potential and fostering high levels of performance, alignment, and joy.
Mm, yes. Wow. That's a deep question. I love your questions, Dr. Gita. They really are beautiful and thought provoking. Um, so why do I say performance and I pair it with alignment and joy versus, ROI or all these things? Here's the thing, which is that everyone, if you are human, you are a creator. Like, humanity is about creatorship. That's why we're here, to create. And we create in different ways. Um, and one thing I want to tell everyone really is to honor your process of creation. Like, you don't have to go somewhere to realize. Just think about yourself and how things have come to be manifest in your life, and you're going to discover your own process, right? And when you start to, first of all, discover your unique ways, your unique gifts of creation, and you discover the other parts of you that maybe, let's say, are not exactly where you want them to be, or maybe you want something different from the way you create, two things happen. When you want to create in a way that's completely different from your natural way of creating, the first thing that happens is conflict, right? Because there's unfamiliarity. The brain likes the familiar. And that conflict is what brings like procrastination and sabotage. I mean, other things bring that as well. But, that internal conflict where you're fighting with yourself. But when you know how you create, you can then, um, really enhance the parts that need to be enhanced. You can help the parts that need help. And, high performance to me is about really being in your zone of genius, which is a little bit what I'm talking about. It's not about working hard, no pain, no gain. It's about being in flow and connected to your zone of genius. We all have them. And really harnessing that part of you, right? So that, um, you can create in a way that is self sustaining. I work a lot with entrepreneurs and, founders. They come to me, they're exhausted, they burn out, because they've just not even allowed themselves to rest or honored what their bodies need, right? And so when you start to do that, um, you know, the other thing that is important is knowing your values. Like, what is important to you? What do you stand for? Right? It's not just, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to create that. Why is it important to you? Because when we have these values and we align to the values that we have, then it's like our life becomes, an extension of our business. Our business becomes an extension of our values. It's like it, it lessens the difficulties, the challenges that we do have, all of us in our lives, right? It starts to lessen that and you start to shine. It's like you bring your radiant essence online, right? And when you feel that you're doing what you stand for, what matters to you, then you're happy. It's like you can work 18 hours, but you're still like, yeah, let's do this. And when you are in misalignment, it's like after 1 hour, it's like somebody get me out of here. I want to go home. Have you ever felt that? Yeah, I have. It's like, I can't take this anymore. I need to go. Versus, wow, this is so great. Like it's almost like a self ignition, right? It's like a self regenerative thing that starts to happen. It's magic, right? And when you have that, then you have there's this joy, and then the extra benefit that comes is you start to release self judgment, self criticism, right? Which is where you can then, this full expression, it's like you're not like the self censoring, self uh, comparison starts to kind of melt away because you start to realize that you are your own iconic essence. Nobody can be you, and you don't need to be somebody else. They already are them, right? So the comparison goes down, and so the stress, anxiety, judgment, comparison, also start to melt away, and so I love that. That's why um, it's really my highest intention for my clients.
Dr. Marie Mbouni, it has been absolutely delightful being in conversation with you and experiencing not only your knowledge and wisdom, but your full presence. It's really inspiring talking to you, and I'm sure the audience will feel similarly. Where can people find out more information about your work, your books, your courses on heart leadership, as well as the Source Codes Mystery School?
Mm. So my book, which is was a healing journey for me, is called "Healing the Five Wounds of the Heart: Free Yourself from the Bonds of the Past." It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Yeah, those two. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Marie Mbouni MD. So the MD is at the end, and it's my last name plus MD. And my website, mariembouni.com. But if you really want to reach me, it's better to send me a DM on Instagram because I'll see it right away. I don't check my emails every day. So, yeah,
And if people want a consultation, I'm assuming that's the way to reach out to you.
as well.
As
Yes, they can email me as well. My email is love@mariembouni.com. However, like I said, I don't check my emails every day. However, I'll see a DM right away, and then we can move to other forms of communication. Yeah,
Once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure having you on the summit.
it's been a blast talking to you. I mean, I was having so much fun, and I really love your presence as well. Your presence, your listening capacity, your active listening, and the beautiful questions that were just expanding as well. So it was a pleasure. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
having me.